The Foguang Sea Pagoda is a remarkable structure. It's going to be built during the Northern Song period, and this is a massive wooden structure. And it's actually a pagoda, which is a Hindu or Buddhist temple or sacred building, typically a many-tiered tower in India and East Asia. And it can take on a number of different forms. Here we're seeing something a little more traditional, whereas the one that you see on the left is kind of a hybrid between a pagoda and a stupa, but I'm not going to dig into those muddy areas here. Now, looking at the piece, we have an absolutely massive piece of wooden architecture. This is roughly 216 feet tall. And we see a 60-foot giant 4-tiered bracket that carry the floor beams and projecting eaves of the 5 main stories. And it's really an interesting structure. When you look at it, what they've done is we have concentric rings of columns on each floor which carry the weight. So we have an inner ring, and then we have another outer ring, and another further out. And what that does is it allows them to build this absolutely massive structure. To give you an idea, here's a man standing here. Very tiny arrow for the tiny man. And it gives you an idea of the size of the Buddha that we see in the inside of the pagoda. Now, the fact that the entire thing is wood is truly remarkable, because wood is not the sort of material that we tend to use in massive architecture, and yet they have here. And in part, it's because of those concentric circles, using all of those columns to carry the weight. It's in part because they're using fairly lightweight methods in their construction. And when we look at it, you can see this bracketing system that they're using to pull everything together. All of the rafters and everything tend to cantilever out from those concentric circles and those columns inside. And as it cantilevers out, there's not much weight on the cantilever. Mostly this is just an overhang for the roof. It's not too much, but it allows for this rather remarkable bit of construction. And the use of the symmetrical placement of statues inside, along with the colossal scale of the ground floor statue and the intricacy of this beam and bracket system, is really rather ingenious. And from a Buddhist perspective, this actually gets at a number of different ideas. The most important being that it makes you feel small as you enter it. Imagine looking up at this structure. Here you are standing here about that tall, looking up at this structure. You're going to feel tiny. And that's important because in some Buddhist teachings, it refers to the fact that we are small and we are temporary. We are something that's going to be here for a very short time, whereas the rest of existence is far greater than ourselves, just like the massive structure is far greater than our physical size. It reads into the interpretation, and it's something that we take into account when we deal with sacred spaces. After all, this isn't all that much different from a Gothic cathedral or a giant Greek temple or any number of other structures. But this idea of man as small and divinity as massive is coming out here in pure height. Now, when you go inside, the floors are much smaller. You're not given a view to the utmost ceiling. But you already have that idea of scale when you walk in. You again have the intimacy, or relative intimacy, of the interior space, which makes you feel comfortable, another aspect of religion that people tend to rely on. So there's a lot of symbolism going into this.